Robin McAlpine. Okay, what I'll do is just talk for about 15 minutes, which might sound like a lot of time, but it's really not, given how much work there's involved in the Commonweal. And all I really want to get across, and what I'm going to say here, is some fairly simple things, which is, we never stop to ask what it is that people want from their country. We're told what you want from your country, and an opinion poll will inform you that this is what you said you wanted from your country. But you actually get down and you look at the work that's been done and say, what do people want from their country, from their life? Then can we give them it? Is there a reason why that thing that they want they can't have? Is there something that's stopping them from that? And what I want to tell you is very straightforward. We know what people say they want. We know what is necessary to give them the things that they say they want. We have everything in Scotland we need, with all the resources, with all the wealth, with all the people, with everything that we need to make that happen. And I am firmly of the view that the things that we need to do to make that better Scotland, we have a democratic majority to make it happen, to deliver it. And what's stopping us? The powers. We just don't have the powers to deliver it. So let me see if I can explain 50 policy papers in 15 minutes. And I should explain quickly the project. The Reid Foundation, we're not aligned to any political party. We just wanted to say, what would you do to make the country the best country you could? Straightforward policy papers. And these are academic policy papers, so they are quite hard reading sometimes. There's certainly 75 references in one paper if you really want to plough your way through them. It's a lot of work. But all of it is about creating a society which is not about me first. The me first politics which have dominated Britain for years, but it's about creating a politics that puts all of us first. So what is it that people say they want? Surprisingly, it's fairly straightforward. They say they want somewhere nice to live. This is so important. A decent house with some space outside, some communal space that's clean, where they can go out, where they can play with their children, play space, places they can walk, where they can feel safe and they can feel happy, a clean environment around them. They want meaningful work. This above everything I think is really, really telling, because me first economics would have you convinced that what people want is more and more wealth. It's all about greed and aspiration. But if you ask people, that's not what they say they want. They say they want meaningful work. The sense that when you get up in the morning, you go to your work, you can feel good about it. You can feel happy. Because their economic aims aren't to be wealthier, their economic aims are to be secure. When you ask people what they want, they say, I want to live a good life, and at the end of the month I know I can pay my bills. They don't say, I want to live a good life, and at the end of the month I know I can buy a yacht. That's a fantasy of me first economics. So they want security, they want health, they want a sense of community, they want to feel they can participate. They want a sense of a good life. It isn't so much to ask. So why don't we get it? Because we know what sorts of things you need to deliver that. To get economic security, to get those strong communities, those strong facilities, that infrastructure, that society people want to live in. We're usually told that you can't have it because it's too expensive. That's the dominant story of UK politics. It's too expensive, we need austerity, the days of public spending are over. This is absolute nonsense. What we have is not a problem with too much public expenditure. What we have is a serious problem with our labour market. That serious problem with our labour market means that people are in poverty even when they're in work, and that means that their contribution to the tax base, which you use to invest in your societies, isn't big enough. Now, to show you how bad it is, if you stop and you think about what you would consider to be the kind of salary that might be reasonable to live in. So we're not talking about something where you're spending all your money in foreign sports cars and hiring tax lawyers, but you're not talking about something where to get through the week you need to rely on tax credits, where you need to rely on food banks and benefits, housing benefit and all the rest of the things. You can participate in the economy, pay your bills, you can live a decent life, and you can have the security to know that you can feed your family. £25,000 to £35,000? Is that a sort of reasonable, modest salary range? Well, if you take everybody who's working in Scotland today, only 1 in 5 of them earn between £25,000 and £35,000. 3 out of 5 working Scots earn less than £25,000. Half of working Scots earn less than £21,000 a year. And 1 in 3 people who work in Scotland just now will not take home £14,000 by the end of this year. That is what the problem we've got. We have a low pay economy. Now, if it didn't look like that, if it was different, what would the implications be? It's fairly straightforward. If you take, and we did this in a report that's on our website, I always forget to mention websites, reidfoundation.org, and the Commonweal website, which takes those academic papers and translates it all a little bit into easier languages, the Commonweal website is allofusfirst.org. On the Reid Foundation website, you'll find a paper on tax. And what we did was, we used the Scottish tax model. So this is the tax model which explains how much income tax you generate from Scotland. We said we're not going to change the size of the economy. So this is not one of those, if we grow the economy, everyone can be better. The economy as it is, but we will distribute wages across this economy more evenly. So we don't have the super high pay at the top, we don't have the very poor wages which really start in the middle and work all the way down to the bottom with intense poverty. An even spread, a more even spread, the same spread as they have in a Nordic country, and the same levels of people in work as they have in a Nordic country, very high levels of economic participation. By doing only that, and recalculating the tax model, it shows that we would generate an extra £4 billion in tax without raising taxes at all. The best way to create wealth in our society is to create jobs that make people wealthy. And once people are wealthy and they pay their taxes, as you can see, they create public finances which are comfortably strong enough to invest in whatever it is that you want to invest in. We do not have a problem with too high taxes. We do not have a problem with public finances. We've got a problem with poverty and poverty wages. And that's where all the rest of the problems stem from. Now, where does all of that start? I keep rattling through this, but people clapping really shows me. But feel free if anything is really exciting. Where does all this start? It's because there's been one political philosophy, this me first philosophy of politics in the UK that we've had now for 35, 40 years. And for slightly older audience, this one, for many of you, it'd be interesting to note that one day last year, which I'm going to sit down and calculate, one day last year, the period of time from when the welfare state was started in 1945, all the way through when they created all those great things, the public housing, the National Health Service, the nationalisation, a social security service. Last year was a day when the period when Britain spent building up its welfare state, from about 1945 to 1979, is shorter than the period that Britain has spent dismantling its welfare state. And you think about that. This great welfare state that we've got took us 35 years to really build it up, and it's taken us 35 years to really start to build it back down again. That's where we started with this. And it's all this political philosophy from 1979 onwards, me first economic. It's the politics of conflict. This whole political philosophy is based on the idea that if you put two people in a room, whoever comes out alive must be the winner, must be the best, must be the one that you back. That's strength. And if you can identify the strength and you back that all the time, then that must surely be better for everybody. It's the kind of political philosophy that leads to the UK banking sector. The bigger the bank, the stronger, the more control, that must be best. And if it's putting small businesses out of business so that they can take their assets from them and knock down prices, or if they're selling you insurance products which are bad for you, which are harmful for you, but they're making a profit, that must be good for everybody. It's how we got to a housing market where housing and land are controlled by big commercial developers who control the value and the price of houses. What this does is, it doesn't help householders. If you've got one house, until the day when you die and pass your house on to your family, or if you ever greatly downsize, it doesn't help you, because the more expensive house just means your next house is more expensive too. Who it helps is the people who can either own multiple houses or who can develop and control the land in the housing market. They have got incredibly rich. 7 out of the 10 richest people in the Sunday Times Rich list in Britain are property developers. At whose expense did they get rich? Virtually everybody else. Certainly young families trying to start in the housing market. The conflict model in banking screwed their customers. The conflict model in housing has screwed everybody who wants to live in a house. You can keep going with this. Bad retail. We have a retail system which has consistently closed down our high streets. Our small local businesses, our thriving local economies have been closed down. Why? Because Tesco is bigger, and if it's bigger it must be better, and if it's better it must be able to close other shops down, and if they close down they can't be as good. So what we're going to live in is a society where all of our towns are dead and all of the profit is generated in sheds in fields outside our towns owned by multinational corporations who extract that money and take it out of the economy. Because that's the fundamental problem with a me first economy. It works on the principle of profit maximisation. And it's time that we said what that really means. In Britain, profit maximisation means how can you take the most profit out while putting the least investment in the shortest time possible. That's all it means. That's why our economy is retail and banking and property, because none of these things involve investment or patience or long-term commitment. And incidentally, this is why we have the underlying problem. These are all largely skill-free jobs. How much skill do you need to take a t-shirt out of a box and put it in a coat hanger in a retailer's? How much skill does it take to buy 4 houses and then sell them and then buy 10, sell them and then buy 15? How much skill does it really take when there are only 4 or 5 major banks and all of them are charging the same for the same products and pushing the same stuff, and there is no real competition? This is what happens when you create conflict politics and follow that philosophy. Everything becomes bigger, and inevitably what we end up with is phenomenal corporate profits and monopoly and cartel behaviours, which is what we've seen right across our economy. And because they use this low productivity, low investment, low skill model, they only create low pay jobs. That's the problem with the whole of this. Quick profit maximisation in Britain has come to mean how can we make sure that our workforce take the least possible back out of our profits? How can we make sure that shareholders take the maximum possible? And if anybody thinks that the shareholders in the corporations that I'm talking about are people, like normal people, the shareholding democracy that Margaret Thatcher imagined, then they're kidding themselves. These are largely international equity companies who extract this wealth straight out of our economy and take it away. This is not economic growth, this is economic sabotage. The alternative is fairly straightforward. We can see it in other countries close by us. They don't take this approach. We have this thing, which we do, which is, well, you can't intervene in the economy. You have to be neutral. This is nonsense. There is no such thing as neutrality. Every action we take has an outcome. If you say, here is a giant public sector contract, then that favours people who can manage big contracts, corporations. If you put out a small public sector contract, that favours businesses who are interested in small contracts, i.e. local suppliers. Everything that a government does favours one kind of economy or another. By standing back and allowing the biggest to dominate, we have almost explicitly said we want a low pay, low productivity, low investment economy. All we have to do is the opposite. We have to start to favour the kind of economy that creates the kind of jobs, that create the kind of wealth among ordinary people, that creates the kind of society that we say we want. We need a productive economy. Now, what this means is the value has got to be created in the economy. What we tend to have is a situation where the value is created somewhere else. So some poor lassies working in some poor sweatshop somewhere in China, making thread into cloth and cloth into t-shirts and shipping it over here. And all that we get in this economy is not the creation of the value, but the realisation of the value, which is to say, they take it out of our pockets. The whole of the retail economy is just them taking money out of our pockets. It takes about 2 seconds to figure this out. Do they put more back into the economy than they take out? Well, how would they be profitable? Therefore, the more retail we have, the poorer we get. If you're in any doubt about this, have a quick think. What's trumpeted as the UK's second top destination for shopping? Glasgow. So it's the retail capital of everywhere but London. Where's the worst poverty in Britain? Is it a coincidence? People sometimes think it's a coincidence. It's not. These things cause each other. Low pay economy create poverty. And so I say this to every single of these new economic development professionals with their regeneration through retail. Could you show me somewhere where it worked? Could you show me somewhere where an out-of-town retail centre actually regenerated an economy? Because I've never seen one. We need to get back to what they used to do in the olden days, and it worked. It's called an industrial policy. You say, no, democracy is not, the economy is not somehow outside of democracy. You know all that, you can't buck the market. That was just a way of saying this is some sort of God-given entity which you as citizens have no right to get above yourselves and consider that you've got any democratic right to have a say in. This is nonsense. The economy is part of our society. Our society is democratic. If we collectively and between us want to create an economy which is better for us, we have a democratic right to try and do that. And we can. And I say again, of course there are international rules about trade and what you can and can't do. But if you look at almost every other country, they do it massively better than us. In the last 30 years, there's only 2 countries in the developed world that saw a proportionate decrease in their industrial production. One was France, 4% drop, the other was the UK, 35% drop. The others were seeing 20, 30, 50, 100% rises in their industrial production. So anyone that says that we can't manufacture and make things in an advanced economy doesn't know what they're talking about. We are the second lowest paid economy of the advanced nations. We work the 3rd longest hours. We have the worst pensions, the worst pensions, 3rd most likely for our pensioners to end up in poverty in all of Europe. All of these things are part of this conflict politics, this conflict model of how to run our society. If we can do the opposite, if we can say there are steps that we can take to favour a creative economy. Now, creative economy means a lot of things. It means taking local seriously. Local food production and local distribution of food is what keeps many countries around the world healthy and strong, because these are local economies. And remember, 70% of any economy will never export anything. The vast majority of economies are domestic. It's you buying your cornflakes. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that a massive amount of our national wealth is routine. It's the stuff that matters to you. So how do you want to do it? Do you want to do it in your community, by your community, for your community, or do you want to keep driving these out-of-town shopping centres? Because the decisions that we make can decide how these things work. If we want to have a productive industrial economy, we need patient finance that thinks in terms of 6 months. No. A year? No. We've got to be thinking in terms of 5 years, 10 years. We've got to invest patiently. We've got to stop this idea that unless some striding multinational corporation does it, it's not worth it. So are we going to sit around and keep our fingers crossed that Scotland's leading role in hydrogen battery design? And for those that don't know, hydrogen batteries are what's going to run the world. This is the post-carbon economy. This is what happens when you start running your entire economy based on hydrogen instead of carbon. And the hydrogen battery is at the heart of that. Some of the world's leading expertise in hydrogen battery development is in Scotland. We have the manufacturing expertise, and we have absolutely loads of renewable energy, which is great for creating the hydrogen that fuels hydrogen batteries. Nobody's building them, and nobody's making them. So we all go home. Should we just roll over and say, oh, well, the private sector didn't think Scotland was worth it? Or should we try something different? For example, we could create a national mutual company where every single Scot, every citizen gets one non-tradable share in that company. We can capitalise it, we can build an industry in it, we can run it, we can control it, we can make the decisions about our national company that we own, and at the end of the year, probably in time for Santa Claus coming, we can all get dividends from our national company if we choose that this is something that we want and we want to create. This is what we can do with an industrial policy. Now, I could go on for hours with industrial policy, but I need to go on for hours full stop. I'm sure some will come up in question and answers, but if we can do this, if we can get to this high innovation, high productivity economy, it will create the jobs that we need. We also put a policy paper out recently saying working the 3rd longest hours in Europe, and the fact that we have 16 percentage points behind the average productivity of an advanced nation. Our productivity in this country is absolutely embarrassingly awful. These things are linked. We need to stop working exhausting hours which create only stress and poor performance. We need to upskill everything. Oh, I'm so in the role with this, and I can't help but say this is not only about those exciting new jobs in hydrogen that I was mentioning. Let's pick the way that different economies treat their ordinary workers. In a Nordic economy, in a supermarket or in a large retail store, each of the people there is a manager. You don't centralise the management and send out clipboards for people to tick and do what they're told. Each one of them is a stock manager for their part of the shop. They control and manage their part of the shop. It's a professional job to manage part of a retail store in a Nordic country. It is not a de-skilled moronic task where people are sent out in the morning almost actively discouraged from thinking about the job that they're doing, and almost actively discouraged from taking any pride or interest in what they do. And that's why we are not as good as them. That's why we are not productive, because our people don't care about their jobs and their people do, because their people's jobs are worth caring about. Right, so we've done this, we've created this positive, strong, productive, innovative economy that's making things and exporting things and selling things. We've created happier citizens, because my God, happiness is political. I am so sick to death of saying we are going to chase permanently straight after this aggressive model of economic growth and your happiness is your problem. Sorry, no it's not. The foundations for happiness are set by our society. Like I say, a clean environment, space outside that you can enjoy, public services and facilities close to you that matter. It used to be the case that everybody in Scotland could pop out the door and walk 10 minutes to their local town hall or their community hall, or that there was facilities. Nowadays, they'll build one sports centre for 10 villages and think that's sufficient. We've got to create better facilities because these make people happy. We've got to have more time for ourselves, more time with our families, because this is what makes us happy. We have to create a framework which gives people a fighting chance of a happy life, because that's what we're working towards here. I've bounced about quite a lot there. I kind of feel I should probably sit down just now, because I was about to launch off in housing, possibly industrial democracy, midway environment, and I haven't even 3/4 of the papers. But this gives you this idea. Anything that they say that you can't do, like get a better housing system in this country. See, I just went on housing anyway. Get a better housing system. All the stuff they said you can't do, we can do. There are well-established ways of dealing with the problems of negative equity. There are straightforward ways to bring down the price of housing. We would all benefit if we had a housing market that was like Germany's, where, bluntly, you don't have to own. You can have high-quality, lifelong rental housing. You own that house, and as far as you can do whatever you want with that house, it's your house for life, but it's rented. You're not stuck with a mortgage you don't need. You've not been forced into making profits for a bank that you didn't want to make profits for. We can build that here. We can have a situation where people can buy houses at sensible, reasonable, affordable prices that enhance their lives, not harm their lives. We can do all of this. We can do it very quickly because, oh God, I wasn't going to do investment very, very quickly, and I will solve the problems. This is all because we can change the way that we approach investment. One of the other shocking statistics, and this is really alarming for me, I was amazed to see this. This is one of our policy papers that's just coming out. If you take all of the public and the private sector investment and personal investment, all of it in the UK, and then you subtract depreciation, so that's how much money you would have to spend simply to keep things as they are, and you allow for a bit of an expansion of the public. If you do these things, it turns out that the net rate of investment in Britain today is negative. We are not investing enough in the UK economy now, in the private, public and personal sectors combined, simply to stand still. We're not even investing for the future. For Scotland to get to the average of a European country for investment, we need to be spending £5 billion, about £5 billion more a year in Scotland alone. And everyone says you can't do that either, because investing means you've got to tax, or you've got... No. One of the tricks of austerity was to pretend that we can't invest. What austerity is really, it's an anti-investment model. It's a model that says, no, you've all got to cut, and you can't spend for the future. This is crazy. This is not true at all. They invented deficits, not us. It was their tax cutting which caused the deficit budgets where the revenue that you spend in a year is not enough. That was their side, not our side. We need to get out of deficit. We can do that quickly with another paper that you can check on our website. A small package of modest wealth taxes, along with some resource taxes, cutting down on tax avoidance, and taking energy back into collective ownership, so all those profits from energy come to us, not to them. Doing a small range of these things comfortably get us out of deficit. And then we can invest properly, because every single period of major economic growth in this country, all the best periods of economic growth in Britain are when we borrowed to invest. In the post-1945 period, when we had by far our best jump forward in social progress and economic progress in this country, our national borrowing was 9 times higher than it is today. 9 times higher. We borrowed then and we invested in it and it paid off. So housing, you want a housing market? This is one model. Create a national housing company. Borrow internally against future rent over a 30 or 40 year mortgage style payment. We can borrow as much as we want immediately without affecting the public sector debt problems. We can do that immediately and we can put it into housing. And people ask me, how quickly could you start in Commonwealth after independence? Second day, third day, if you want to. We go out there, we can raise the money, we can put it into a housing company, we can build a new generation of absolutely impeccable quality rental housing that make people look at the house that they own and think, why the hell did I do this? mortgage to rent is one of the key things that you can do. We can do this. We can invest in our country. We can build a better economy. Once we've done all of that, we can create the public finances that can build the society that we say that we want. Somewhere nice to live, meaningful work, security, know that I'm okay, my health, my happiness, my family, my community. We can build that, and there's absolutely nothing stopping us. We just have to get away from a politics which says that conflict is the only route forward, the only way to get social development, and say, no, you can have social development from mutuality, from saying that what we do collectively together will raise us higher than what we can do by fighting each other in a constant battle of everybody against everyone. We've got no chance of escaping the me first politics of Britain if we stay. If we stay where we are, we will never get out. There's not a shadow of a hint of a suggestion that anyone is going to come in at Westminster and is going to say anything other than conflict is the way forward. We've had 40 years of me first politics, and we all came second. It is time that we had a politics that put all of us first. To do that, we know what we want, we know how to get it, we have everything we need, and there's a democratic majority in this country to do it. If we can only get the powers, if we can only get those powers. Thanks.